Still my favorite album from Iced Earth, The Glorious Burden, and Declaration Day here on Eddie Trunk Live on Sirius XM, The Bonyard, and two of the people you just heard on that record are in the studio. Tim Ripper Owens on vocals, Richard Christy on drums, and Brian Slagel from Metal Blade Records as well. Is that where you guys first met, as members of Iced Earth?
Well, yeah. Well, we met in it was a local gay bar that I was at back home at first, and that all started the whole.
We actually didn't. We saw each other through a hole in the wall. Then though, we didn't really actually meet until I started.
We never looked eye to eye.
Yeah.
So, Richard, you had been in Iced Earth, though, for a while before Tim's arrival into the band, right?
Yeah, since the year 2000, and Tim came in 2003. So, yeah, we just had a great time on tour together. I knew Tim was a really cool dude. I was a big fan of him from the Judas Priest days, and, you know, I always knew that I would want to do something else with Tim because he's pretty much my favorite singer, so...
And you left the band first, right, Richard? You were out, and Tim was in for a little while longer.
Yeah.
And you left the gig for Stern. That's what you left Iced Earth for, right?
Yeah. Pretty much the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my life because I was in a band that I loved, and I loved touring with Iced Earth and recording with them, and I had to make a decision because I had a chance to try out for the Howard Stern show, but it conflicted with Iced Earth's schedule, so I had to make a decision. And the reason I chose the Howard Stern show is I've just been a massive fan since the mid-'90s, and I also thought to myself, well, if I don't at least try out for the Stern show, I'll always wonder what if I would have tried out, and I didn't want that pressure on me for the rest of my life. So I tried out, and now I have the funnest job in the world, and I'm so grateful, and I got to thank Howard for everything. He's awesome.
2-3 years ago, before the merger happened between these two companies, I came up to this building because they were talking about actually bringing me over here from XM, because I was on the XM side, to come work at Sirius. So I did a little tour of the building, and with me was my good friend Mike Piazza. When I told Mike that you worked on the Stern show, his biggest thing was to seek you out to talk to you about your drumming on The Glorious Burden. And to this day, as a matter of fact, just the other day, I think on the wrap-up show or with Florentine or something, Gary mentioned that Gary Delabate still remembers that Mike's biggest thrill about being back there was to find you because he was such a fan of your drumming.
I know that day in particular, all the sports guys back in our studio were freaking out, like Will Murray and Jason Kaplan and Gary, because Mike Piazza was back there, and they saw Mike asking me how to play the double bass on The Reckoning by Iced Earth, and they just couldn't fathom that Mike knew who I was as a drummer. So I thought that was really, and I was shocked too. I thought it was so cool that Mike was into metal and he knew who I was. But yeah, it's been brought up a few times. Howard's played my drumming on the air, but it's hard to get past the fact that I do so much male nudity with Sal Governale on the show. That's what I'm mostly known for on the Stern show, and once in a while the drumming comes up.
The Piazza thing was kind of validation that you actually were a good drummer, because I listen to Stern all the time too, and they talk about that all the time. I think before they're like, well, he was in some little tiny metal band that nobody really cared about, and all of a sudden Piazza shows up and does all that stuff, and like, wow, this guy really must be good.
So, Tim, how did you end up reuniting with your old drummer here, Richard Christy, and whose idea was it to do this new band, Charred Walls of the Damned?
You know, he came to Akron on a comedy show, him and Sal and the whole clan.
Beetlejuice.
Right? I mean, it was insane. We had a great night. But he still talked about it. Would I be interested in singing on his little solo or his little album? He wants to do an album, and I'm like, yeah, sure, you know. I think I said no.
He never thought I'd actually call him.
Yeah, sure. Then he called and I said no. But you know, we talked about it, and then he started sending me a few demos at a time, and I started working on a couple of the vocals at home, and you know, it was amazing. And what came out of it, it absolutely blows my mind. Right? And I think people are just going to be totally blown away by it.
Of course, Metal Blade Records, legendary label, one of the few metal labels that has endured and, as you've told me recently, actually thrived at a time where most record labels are dying on the vine. Where did your involvement come from with Charred Walls? How did you first hear about it and get involved?
Well, I knew Richard, and so I've been friends with him for a while. And I was listening to the show one day, and there was either a news report on the show or he was talking, I forget, on the Stern show. Talking about you have these demos, and he was having to pay for the recording, and he wanted to do it himself. So I just sent him an email and said, hey, dude, maybe we should talk about this. Why don't you send me the demos and see if they're any good? Like, I was a little worried because you never know, if the stuff's going to be any good or not. And he sent me the demos, and I actually thought it was pretty good. And then, once I heard Jason was in the band and Ripper, I was like, this is actually something pretty interesting. So I said, hey, I'd love to put this thing out and, give you some money so you don't have to spend all your own money down there on the studio. And it honestly came out much better than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be a really cool little project, but as it started to come together, I think it's done really well. We're all super happy about it.
The band is called Charred Walls of the Damned. In studio with me are Richard Christy and Tim Ripper Owens, who of course are members of the band, and Brian Slagel from Metal Blade Records as well. Richard, you came up with the name of the band?
Well, a religious Christian DJ in the southern part of the U.S. came up with that name.
Really? Explain
Yeah.
that.
Well, Sal and I on the Howard Stern show here on Sirius XM satellite radio, we do a lot of prank calls. It's really the greatest job I could ever dream of having. Cause,
And you guys do an amazing job.
oh, thank you very much. I never dreamed that I'd be able to wake up at 4 in the morning and come into New York City, Rockefeller Center, and get paid to make prank calls. It's really the craziest thing I could ever think of. But we were doing a prank call one day. We do these tradio calls where tradio is a type of radio in a lot of small towns. It was in Kansas when I was growing up, and that's how we knew about it. It's a radio where you call in and buy and there's a famous DJ that goes, "Thank you for your call," over and over on radio. But you can call in, you sell items, you buy items. It's like eBay on the radio, and you can also email stuff to them. So there was this one Christian tradio show in the southern part of the U.S. that Sal and I had been messing with for like a week. We sent in a bunch of crazy emails, and they were reading it on the air, like "Happy Birthday to Curly Pubes" and "Eating Beaver," and stuff that they didn't realize what they're saying is really filthy, but it was. And I guess they found out after a few days that we were messing with them. And they come on one day and they go, "We got to start off the show on a very serious note. The devil has been here on our station." They pretty much called me and Sal the devil, and they go, "If you're listening, and we know you are, we want you to come and join us in Jesus' hand and accept Jesus into your heart, and not in a sinner's hell where you'll be scratching your nails on the charred walls of the damned." And Sal and I heard them say this, and at the time I'd been trying to think of a band name for like 2 months, because I swear every cool band name has already been taken. And Sal and I looked at each other and we were like, that is an awesome band name. And first thing I did was Google it, and luckily nobody had that band name, and also the phrase didn't even seem to exist. I guess this religious guy was in such a tizzy that he just put these words together, but meanwhile, little does he know, he'd come up with an awesome band name for me.
Did you write stuff on here? Because most drummers aren't capable of writing, but do you write also?
Yeah, I played guitar since '92, and really since I moved to New York, started playing a lot more at night and stuff. And yeah, I wrote all the guitar parts and the drums and the bass, and sent some vocal ideas to Tim. And yeah, I just I've always loved recording. I love writing music, so yeah, I pretty much put it all together. But then once we got in the studio, Jason and I got together for a couple days of pre-production, and Jason is an amazing songwriter, an amazing producer. So I knew that once Jason got a hold of the songs, once Tim and Steve DiGiorgio got a hold of the songs and did their thing, that they would just become incredible. When I play guitar, I'm just okay. I'm not great. So I knew once all these guys got a hold of this music, it would just take another life and just take on another form and become even better.
And he even wrote the lyrics.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I can't only imagine what the subject matter is about.
Well, believe it or not,
I'd say surprising.
It's a little too serious, quite honestly.
Yeah, well, everybody asks, a lot of people interview and ask, is this a comedy thing? And it's definitely not. This is,
well, the DVD is.
The DVD is very funny, yeah. But no, the album, I treat this band with the utmost seriousness, and same with metal. I've been a huge metal fan since I was a kid, and
I think people that know your background and know what you've done and know you're a legit metal guy that lives and breathes it will know that you're not gonna dick around with the record.
I think you can hear from the first 20 seconds that it's that it means business, and we're doing it as for our love of metal, as a serious thing. And the lyrics deal with a lot of personal stuff. I have a song about my fear of flying on there. I'm scared to death of flying, and I just wrote about stuff that I feel that I hope other people can relate to. I wrote about my love for drumming. There's one song that's just about, you know, the passion that you can have for anything that, any instrument you play or anything that you do. And it's just a lot of personal type lyrics that I could relate to, and I found it very easy to write lyrics that way.
No turning